इदं भागवतं नाम पुराणं ब्रह्म संहितं उत्तम श्लोक चरितं चकार भगवान् ऋषिः निःश्रेयसाय लोकस्य धन्यं स्वस्ति अयं महत् तदिदं ग्राहयम् आस सुतम् आत्मवतां वरं सर्ववेदेतिहासानां सारं सारं समुद्धृतम् इदं भागवतं नाम पुराणं ब्रह्म संहितम् उत्तम श्लोक चरितं चकार भगवान् ऋषिः. Srimad Bhagavatam is Bhagavan's avatar. It is a very incarnation of Narayana, compiled by the illustrious Vedavyasa. It is the ultimate, it is meant for our ultimate good, to teach us the supreme dharma. This Mahapurana was then taught by Vyasa to his illustrious son Shukadeva. Tadidam grahayam asa sutam atmavatam varam. Vyasa, by extracting, by churning the ocean of the Vedas and the Vedanta, extracted gems from them and presented it in the form of Bhagavatam and delivered it to his son Shukha. Satu samshravayam sa maharajam parikshitam prayopavishtam gangayam paritam paramarshirihi. Shukha then delivered this Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Seated on the banks of Ganga, giving up everything, including food and water, Parikshit attentively listened as Bhagavatam was delivered to him by Shukha. Last session, we ended witnessing the glorious departure of Bhishmacharya. Krishna evam bhagavati mano va drishti vrittibihi atmanyatmanamaveshya saha antashvasa uparamat. Towards the end of the 9th Adhyaya of Pratama Skanda, after bestowing the glorious Bhishma Stuti, Bhishmacharya finally decided to depart. And we witnessed that glorious exit of Bhishmacharya in the very presence of Sri Krishna. Now let us take a pause and reflect on the journey of Srimad Bhagavatam that has brought us to where we are today and how we reached here. The Pratama Skanda of Srimad Bhagavatam can be looked upon as the summary of all summaries, and also as that part of Bhagavatam which captures the advent of this glorious Mahapurana. Right at the beginning, we see the objective categorically stated. The objective being experiencing the glories of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. The scene is set. The serene forest of Naimisharanya happens to be the scene for the exchange of the Amrita between the sages led by Shaunaka, and Suta. The Prathama Skanda constitutes 19 adhyayas. And so far we have covered 9 adhyayas. The first 3 adhyayas of Prathama Skanda deal with conversation between the sages of Naimisharanya and Shukha. Shaunaka, representing the sages, asks 6 important questions. And Shukha answers these 6 questions. Shaunaka, on behalf of us, asks 6 very important questions. Question number 1, what is the supreme dharma? Question number 2, what is the very essence of all shastras? Question number 3, what is the purpose of the glorious Krishna Avatara? Question number 4, what are the various avatars of Bhagavan? Why Bhagavan repeatedly takes these avatars? Question number 5, what are the various leelas of Bhagavan when he takes his glorious avatars? And question number 6, after Sri Krishna's departure, after his disappearance, where did Dharma take refuge? These are the 6 questions that were asked. And Suta beautifully answers all these 6 questions. What is the Paramo Dharma? What is supreme dharma? Suta gives a profound response. He says, Bhakti is the supreme dharma. Savai pumsham paro dharmo yatho bhakti radhokshaje ahetuki apratihata tha bhakti. He says, Bhakti is the Parama Dharma, supreme dharma, he says. Answering the second question, what is the essence of all Shastras? Suta says, Kainkarya is the very essence. Loving, devotional service is the very essence of all Shastras. And then he takes up the third question. What is the purpose of Krishna Avatara? Suta says, Bhagavan descended for the sake of leading all his bhaktas back to his abode. The purpose of Krishna Avatara is to empower all his devotees, all the bhaktas, to enable them to long to belong where they eternally belong. That is the very purpose of Krishna Avatara, he says. And then Suta, taking up the questions on the avatars and Bhagavan's Leela, he sums up all his Mukhya avatars. We relish 21 avatars of Bhagavan and the purpose of all these avatars. And then he takes up the 6th question. Where did Dharma take shelter after Krishna's disappearance? Suta answers, Krishne swadhamo bhagate dharma jnanadivis saha kalau nashta trisham esha puranarko adhunoditaha. He says, Dharma took shelter in Srimad Bhagavatam. After Krishna's disappearance, Dharma took the shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavata is brilliant like the sun. This sun we saw the sun rising after Krishna's disappearance. And in Kali Yuga, for one who is overcome with darkness of ignorance, Bhagavatam is the guiding light, he says. And Bhagavatam is nothing other than Krishna himself. While leaving, Krishna decided to stay back in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam so that he is accessible to one and all, easily accessible to one and all. The Padma Purana celebrates the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam and how Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. Every skanda, every canto of Srimad Bhagavatam represents an anga of the transcendental form of Sri Krishna. Padau yadiyau pratamadvitiyau tritiyaturyau katitau yaduruhu nabhistata panchamayeva sashtaha jantaramdo yugalam tathanyau kantastu rajanne navamo yadiyo mukharavindam dashamau prapullam ekadasho yasya lalatapattham shiropitu dvadasa eva bhatihi. The Padma Purana says, Padau Yadiyau Prathamam Dithiyau. The first two skandhas represent the divine lotus feet of Sri Krishna. The skanda 1 and skanda 2, canto 1 and 2, represent the divine lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Tritiya Turyau Katitau Yaduruhu. The third and fourth skandhas represent the divine thighs of Bhagavan. Nabhistata panchamayeva sashtaha. The fifth skandha represents his nabhi and the sixth his chest. Bhujanamdo yugalam tathanau. The seventh and eighth represent his divine auspicious arms. Kantasturajan navamo yadiyo. The ninth skandha represents his divine throat. Mukharavindam dasamah prapullam. Mukharavindam dasamah prapullam. The 10th skandha represents his enchanting, beautiful face. Ekadasho yasya lalatapattham. The 11th skandha represents his forehead. Shiropidu dvadasa eva bhati. The 12th skandha represents his head. Tamadidevam karudanidanam tamalavarnam suhitavataram apara samsara samudrasetum bhajamrutam bhagavata swarupam. The Bhagavata is Bhagavan Sri Krishna's swarupa. And therefore, at the end of Dwapara, towards the end of Dwapara, when Krishna decided to exit Bhuloka and disappear, he took the form of Bhagavata, and Suta says, Dharma took shelter in Bhagavata. Thus, in the first 3 adhyayas of Bhagavata, we see 6 questions posed by Shaunaka and the other rishis and 6 answers. In a way, we can say Bhagavatam begins with a sixer. In 4th adhyaya, Shaunaka asks 5 more questions, as we have seen. This whole Purana is a set of questions and answers. Questions and answers in a nested fashion. In the 4th adhyaya, 5 questions are asked. Questions on the history of Bhagavatam. A question on the birth of Parikshit. Question on his various activities of Parikshit Maharaj. 4th question being, why did Parikshit decide to give up everything and sit on the banks of Ganga? And the 5th question being, how did Shukha meet with Parikshit? So in order to answer these 5 questions, Suta takes one after the other, and the rest of the adhyayas of Prathama Skanda essentially are answers to these 5 questions. From the 4th skanda up to the 7th, from the 4th adhyaya up to the 7th adhyaya, we see the answer to the question on the history of Bhagavatam. This is where we see how Vyasa, being discontent, dissatisfied, after all the contribution he makes, he is still not content. And then we see the glorious encounter between Vyasa and Narada. And upon Narada's instructions, Vyasa decides to engage in compiling Srimad Bhagavatam. And there we also see the history of Narada as well. And then from the 7th adhyaya onwards until the 12th adhyaya, we see Suta's answer to the question on the birth of Parikshit. From the 7th adhyaya onwards, building up to the glorious event of Parikshit's birth, Suta recounts various incidents that happened, right from the dastardly act of Ashwathama, killing the sons of Pandavas, and then the punishment meted out to Ashwathama. And then he also recounts how after all the war, when Krishna was about to leave, he also saves Uttara's womb from the Brahmastra of Ashwathama. And then Suta also presents the glorious Kunti Stuti in the 8th adhyaya. And then the Bhishma Stuti in the 9th adhyaya and the departure of Bhishma. Adhyayas 10 and 11 deal with Krishna's travel from Hastinapura all the way back to Dwaraka, and Adhyaya 12 is devoted to the details on the glorious birth of Parikshit Maharaj. So thus we see until Adhyaya 12, Suta spends time answering the 2 questions, history of Bhagavatam and the details on the birth of Parikshit. And then the rest of the adhyayas are devoted to activities of Parikshit and why Parikshit decided to give up everything and sit on the banks of river Ganga, and then the encounter between Sukha and Parikshit and the advent of the glorious nectarine Bhagavatam, which is a result of the conversation between Sukha and Parikshit. Yudhishthira now is very clear. Having spent time with Bhishma based on Krishna's advice, Yudhishthira's, the darkness in his mind is totally dispelled. Yudhishthira's grief is completely gone. He is now at peace with himself, and he begins to take over and rule the kingdom. And Suta briefly recounts the glorious rule of Yudhishthira. Suta says, this is in the build-up to the birth of Parikshit. Suta sums up how there was prosperity everywhere in the kingdom of Hastinapura. He says, Kamam Bavarsha Parjanyaha Sarvakama Dukhavahi Shishushma Vrajagavaha Payasodhasvatir Muda. He says, Kamam Bavarsha Parjanya. In the reign of Yudhishthira, there was no dearth of rains. There was abundance everywhere. All because of the prevailing righteousness, the cows profusely gave milk. There was abundance of everything. There was prosperity all over. There was total order. Nadyaha, samudra, girayaha, savanaspatihi, virudaha, phalanti, oshadriha, sarvaha kamam, amvritaha tasya vaihi. The rivers, the oceans, the hills, the mountains, the forests, the plants, the trees, the herbs. There was abundance of everything. There was complete order in society. In the Gita, Krishna says, Sahayajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prashavishyatvam yeshavottvishtakamadak devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantuvaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyaha paramavapsyata. He gives the secret to abundance in society. He says, when everybody works based on the principle of yajna, giving more than taking, when society functions, operates, rooted on the foundation of yajna, then there is abundance everywhere. Abundance is sustained. This is the law of abundance based on which Bhagavan creates this universe. And therefore, when Yudhishthira, the righteous, the Dharmatma, the Dharmajna, when he rules, definitely one has to expect another Ramarajya. And therefore, people witnessed another Ramarajya when Yudhishthira started to rule. And there was abundance everywhere. There was happiness everywhere. There was no sickness. There was no grief. People were very happy, contributing to the well-being of the society, and there was order in society. And then Suta begins to recount how Krishna ended up staying for some more time in Hastinapura, because Subhadra requested him to stay back for some more time. We started seeing Krishna about to take leave way back in 8th Adhyaya. And even now, Krishna continues to stay in Hastinapura. Subhadra requests him to stay back. So Krishna stays back for some more time, and then finally he decides to take leave. And when he decides to take leave, it seems Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Subhadra, all the Pandavas, Kripacharya, Gandhari, everybody assembled, and then when they saw Krishna about to leave, it seems all of them almost fainted. It looks like the great Indian goodbye possibly started way back in Dwapara Yuga. We all know, we all experience the great Indian goodbyes. Never-ending goodbye. It happens right inside, and then there is a procession that goes all the way down to a building onto the road, and even there it never stops. It all started right at the time when Krishna started to say goodbye to the people of Hastinapura. And then nobody could digest that Krishna is finally leaving. Krishna is now starting to travel from Hastinapura to Dwaraka. And Shukha brilliantly captures that with a profound shloka, talking about how the Pandavas, how can they tolerate Krishna's separation? Satsangan muktadutsangaha hadum notsahate buddhaha. Hadum notsahate buddhaha. Kityamanam yasho yasya sakrit atranyarochanam, he says. He says, Satsangan muktadutsangaha hadum notsahate buddhaha. Buddhaha. Who are the Buddha? The truly wise. Who are the truly wise? Who are the truly wise? Krishna gives us the answer in the Gita. Aham sarvasya prabha maktav sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. He says, Pachitta matkata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti saramanchita. He says, the one who knows Aham sarvasya prabhavaha mattas sarvam pravattate. I am the source, cause of all causes, and everything only comes from me. The one who knows this fundamental truth, he is Buddha. He is the wise one. And such a wise person always spends time in loving devotional service to Krishna. Matchitta matkata prana bodayanta parasparam. Completely surrendering one's mind to Krishna, one's prana to Krishna, always celebrating his glories, speaking only his glories, listening only to his glories. That is how a Buddha, the wise one, spends time. Now here it is said, Satsangaha Mukta Dutsangaha Hatu Notsahate Buddha. By through satsanga, through association with sangha, with the spiritual, satsanga, with the good, one attains liberation from dussanga, mukta dussanga. One can detach from the world of matter. One can overcome the power of the allurements of this fantastic world of matter. Satsangaha mukta dussangaha. And through this, the wise one, by constant association with the good, through satsanga, it is said, Kirtyamanam yasho yasaha sakrit akarnya rochanam. Even once, when one listens to Krishna's glories, it is enough to listen to his glories once. The moment one starts to taste Krishna rasa for once, one cannot go back again, it is said. Sakrit akaranya rochanam. One continues, one starts to thirst for the continuation of that experience. When one listens to his glories only once, one would want to continue listening to his glories all the time. So in Bhaja Govindam, Adi Shankara writes, Satsangatve nitsangatvam, nitsangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalatatvam. Now, building on that, with the help of Bhagavatam, we can say Satsangatve Krishna Sangatvam. Satsangatve Krishna Sangatvam. Krishna Sangatve Dhibhaktyadi Gunarnavatvam. Krishna Sangatve Apahatapapmatvam. Krishna Sangatve Vishokatvam. Krishna Sangatve Satyakamatvam. Krishna Sangatve Satyasankalpatvam. With association with Krishna, Satsanga gives us the opportunity to get connected with Krishna. And with this, one gets the right knowledge which ripens into bhakti. Vishokatvam, one overcomes grief. Apahatapapmatvam, one overcomes all the forces of karma. Vijigatsatvam, one overcomes the force of hunger. Vipasakatvam, one overcomes the forces of thirst. Essentially, the forces, the bodily forces, the material forces. And therefore, it is said that for Krishna Sangha, Satsanga is a prerequisite. And the moment one gets into Krishna Sangha, there is no looking back. It is very easy to win over the forces of the world of matter. Now, in order for us to overcome the force of all the allurements of this world, we need to guide our sight with insight. We need to guide. This is exactly what Satsanga helps us, to guide our sight with insight. And the knowledge that we keep getting is not just theoretical. To begin with in the journey, the knowledge may seem theoretical. But as we progress, as we start absorbing the knowledge, assimilating the knowledge, digesting the knowledge, no longer remains theoretical, it becomes transformational. Knowingly or unknowingly, we undergo tremendous transformation. And when we start to taste Krishna, when we start to state the sweet remembrance of Krishna, the sweetness of his remembrance, then one would start to thirst for it and wanting it more and more and more. And therefore, here it is said, Satsangan Muktadussangaha Hatum Notsahate Buddha Kityamanam Yasho Yasya Sakrit Akarnyarochanam. And Sutta says, Tasminyasta Diyapartaha. If this is the case, how can the Pandavas, Partha, the sons of Pritha, all the Pandavas are Partha, not just Arjuna. All the sons of all the Pandavas, the Pancha Pandavas are Partha, sons of Pritha. Tasminyasta Diya Partha. The Pandavas who have surrendered their mind to Krishna, Saheran Viraham Katam, Darshana Sparshana Samlapa, Sayanashana Bhojanai. The Pandavas who have surrendered their mind to Krishna, who have had the opportunity to see him face to face, to spend time with him, to converse with him, to sit with him, stand with him, walk with him, eat with him, relish time with him, to such Pandavas, how can they experience the separation of Krishna? How can those Pandavas tolerate Krishna's separation? And therefore, their hearts were melting. They were unable to control themselves. While the valiant Pandavas were accompanying Krishna as he boarded the chariot, Draupadi, Subhadra, Kunti, Uttara, they all fainted, not knowing what to do. And Krishna began to travel finally towards Dwaraka. The roads of Hastinapura were filled with people, almost not let him go. Everyone wanted him to stay back, but they all knew that time has come for Krishna to move on to Dwaraka. And as Krishna traveled on the roads of Hastinapura, it seems all the women folk of Hastinapura began to assemble on the rooftops of the houses to have a glimpse of Krishna. All the women folk went on to the rooftops, and then it seems they started to have conversation. And Sutta says, Anyonyamasit Sanjalpa Uttama Shloka Chetasam Kauravendra Purastrinam Sarvashruti Manoharaha. He says, it seems the common people, these common women folk, when they started having this conversation between themselves, looking at Krishna, they started talking about Krishna. And he says, Sarvashruti Manoharaha. It seems that talk was even more beautiful than the chanting of Vedas. Why? Because they were all discussing Krishna. They were looking at Krishna and say, hey, Krishna, this is the Paramatma, the Paramapurusha, the Parabrahman who is walking along. And they were all celebrating his glories. And that talk, it seems, was so soothing to the ears, and it was sounding even better than the hymns of the Vedas. Looking at Krishna, it seemed they said, Sava ayam yat padam atra surayaha, jitendriya rijjita matarishvatanaha, pashyanti bhakti utkalita amalatmana, naveshatam sattvam parimarshitum arhati. Sava ayam yat padam atra suryaha, jitendriya nirjita matarishvanaha. This is that Krishna, the one who is walking, who is the goal of all goals for those great sages. They're all discussing, look at our fortune. Great sages do severe penance in order to see him. They conquer their senses, the Jitendriya. They conquer their senses. And only those who are Jitendriya, they get his vision. We are so blessed that we are able to see him, have a glimpse of that Krishna. He is the goal of all goals of those great sages. Pashyanti bhakti utkalita amalatmana. Only when the minds are purified with intense bhakti, one gets his vision. And that is the same Krishna, the goal of all goals. Now it is said that it is knowledge. Jnana is very important to control senses. To become a Jitendriya, Jnana is very much needed. Sense control is good, no doubt. But sense control may not feel good. This is the irony. Sense control is good, but it may not feel good. So therefore, we need much more than just sense control with knowledge. It is not about controlling the senses, it is about conquering the senses. And this is where bhakti helps in conquering the senses. It is about starting to experience a higher happiness. When one starts to taste something superior, automatically one discards things which have lower taste. When one starts to have experience, one starts to experience Krishna, the worldly experiences become worthless automatically. And therefore, those who need to conquer their senses not only need the right knowledge, but they need that knowledge to blossom into bhakti. And it is with that intensity of bhakti, one can stay connected with Krishna all the time. And therefore, all the women folk who have gathered on the rooftops of Hastinapura are all celebrating how blessed we are. At the same time, it is unfortunate, it is misfortune that Krishna now is leaving Hastinapura. They're also saying, yes, Krishna has achieved his mission. Yada hi adharmena tamodiyo nripa jivanti tatra ishahi sappatah kila tatte bhagam satyam ritam dayam yashaha bhavaya rupani dadhat yuge yuge. Whenever the rulers start to go in the wrong direction of adharma, he descends in order to bring back order in society. Tatte bhagam satyam ritam dayam yashaha. He is the very embodiment of Satya, the foundational reality, the existence of everything. He is the very embodiment of Rita. Ritam is that which grows from Satyam. Satya is the foundational reality, the never-changing existence. The rhythm is that which arises from Satya, which is set of the governing laws that bring everything together and ensures that everything in the universe operates the way it should. Krishna is the very embodiment of Satya, very embodiment of rhythm, the very embodiment of compassion, the very embodiment of real faith. That Krishna now is walking away from us towards Dwaraka. So Krishna finally leaves Hastinapura and then he reaches Dwaraka again to a great welcome. Obviously, the residents of Dwaraka, all the queens of Krishna and Balarama, everyone has been waiting for Krishna and they all receive him. And then Krishna settles down in Dwaraka. Now the scene once again shifts back to Hastinapura in Adhyaya 12, where Suta covers further details on the glorious birth of Parikshit. All the sages of Naimisharanya were very curious. Suta had briefly mentioned just before Stuti started, we saw how Uttara came rushing all the way towards Krishna, asking for his protection. Ashwatthama had released the Brahmastra, aiming at Uttara's womb. And it was briefly mentioned there how Krishna protected the womb of Uttara. The sages of Naimisharanya were very curious. How was Parikshit saved? How the Brahmastra of all the astras, the greatest of astras, how was it counted? And they wanted to know the details of the birth of Parikshit. And therefore, now Suta continues to recount the details on the glorious birth of Parikshit Maharaj. Matur Garbha Gatho Veera Satada Rugunandana Tadarsha Purusham Kanchid Dahyamano Astra Tejasa. He says, when the to-be born child in Uttara's womb was experiencing great suffering, was suffering because of burning heat of Brahmastra. When the child was suffering because of the burning heat of Brahmastra, all of a sudden the child noticed the Purushottama approaching. Something magical, something marvelous happened at that very moment. I'm reminded of looking at this child in the womb of Uttara. I'm reminded of a parable. Long time back, this parable went very viral. This was even before the age of WhatsApp. This was the time of email. And when we all used to get forward emails, and just like how we get several forwards today in WhatsApp, I remember reading this parable long time back, which stuck in my mind. A very powerful parable, which talks about the conversation between two babies in the womb of a mother. A conversation between two babies, to be born babies, in the womb of a mother. Amidst all the darkness in the womb, the first baby asks the second, do you think there is life beyond where we are today? And the second baby responds, I'm sure there should be. And I believe we are only being prepared for what is ahead. The first one is a non-believer. It says, this is all nonsense. I don't think there is anything like that. After this, there is only darkness and oblivion. There is no meaning to what we are today, and there is nothing called further existence. Second one says, we have to be patient. There is something which is possibly more glorious awaiting us. Possibly, we may start using our legs to walk. We may start using our mouth to eat. And the first one says, this is all utter nonsense. How is it even possible that we can walk, talk, and eat with our mouths? I don't think any such thing. It's all fantasy, and nothing like that is possible. You're only dreaming. You're only living in a world of fantasy, it says. The second one says, not really. Just wait. It is only a matter of time before we see the loving face of our mother. And then the first one says, mother? Who is mother? Who is she? I don't think anybody like that exists. Second baby says, why do you say so? She very much exists. In fact, we are within her. She surrounds her. Our existence is not there without her. We are inseparable from her. We owe our existence to her. We are made out of her. Sooner or later, we are going to see her. You need to be patient. And the first one says, this is all utter nonsense. I don't see her. Therefore, she doesn't exist. And the second one says, you need to be a little bit more patient and calm. If you calmly listen, you can discover her presence. All that you need is to be calm, and you can discover her presence, and you will know that she is there. She is there trying to communicate with us all the time. You will realize that we are connected with her, and it's just and we are being protected by her. First one says, I don't believe in all this. The reason why I'm reminded of this parable is Bhagavan Narayana, as Paravasudeva, is in a transcendental state and we don't get to discover him. But he is all pervading, he is Sarvadhara. He is there everywhere, but still we don't get to know him, we don't get to see him, and we ignore him. He is all enveloping, he keeps protecting us all the time, yet we don't get to know him, we don't get to see him. He is there in each and every one as our Antaryami, yet we ignore him and we won't get to know him. He therefore takes various avatars and yet we don't recognize him, we ignore him, we don't know him. He takes various forms as Acha and still we don't know him, we keep ignoring him. This is the sorry state of most of the jivas, and luckily for Parikshit, he is a blessed one. Parikshit is so blessed that even before his birth, he begins to experience the Purushottama. He begins to have the glorious vision of Bhagavan. Tadasha Purusham Kanchit Tahyamano Astra Tejasam. In order to protect him from the Tejas of Brahmastra, the little child inside Uttara's womb saw the Purushottama approaching him. What a glorious sight. Angushtamatram amalam spurat puratamaulinam apivyadarsanam shyamam taditvasam achyutam Angushtamatra. It seems Bhagavan was Angushtamatra, thumb size, was approaching, was inside the womb of Uttara, and Parikshit as a child could see Narayana, thumb size, approaching him. And Angushtamatram Amalam, he is Amala, he is immaculate, he is blemishless. Even though he is Antaryami, even though he comes and stays with us in this world of samsara, he is not tainted by the defects, he is blemishless. Akilaheya Pratyanika Kalyanaikatana Svetara Vastu Samastava Vastu Vilakshana Ananta Jnana Anandaika Swarupa. He is full of auspicious divine qualities, and at the same time, he is completely blemishless. Amalam Spurat Purata Maulinam. It seems he was decked with a dazzling kirita. A dazzling kirita, Bhagavan wearing a dazzling Apivyadarsanam, he says. Apivyadarsanam. An extraordinarily beautiful form. The beauty of this beauty is that it eradicates all ugliness instantaneously. The ugliness called suffering. This little child in the womb of Uttara was suffering because of the burning heat of Brahmastra. That beauty, that beautiful vision instantaneously dispelled the ugliness of all suffering then and there. Apivyadarsanam Shyamam, this beautiful form with dark bluish rain-bearing cloud color. Tadit Vasasam, wearing glittering yellow vastra. Achyutam, he is Achyuta, one who will not let go of his devotees. He is there because he is Achyuta, he is there to protect Parikshit. Srimadhir Gachaturbahum Tattakanchana Kundalam Shatajaksham Gadapanim Atmanas Sarvatodisham Paribramantam Ulkabhav Brahmayantam Gadam Muhu Astratejasmagadaya Niharam Iva Gopatihi Vidamantam Sannikarshe Paryekshata Ityasau. It seems Bhagavan with four divine auspicious arms, Taptakanchana Kundalam, wearing dazzling earrings, Kundala, golden earrings, Shatajaksham, rosy eye, Gadapanim, holding a fiery mace, a Gada, And it seems he was whirling the gada all around and circling around Parikshit, the little child, in order to counter the heat of Brahmastra, and he countered it so very effortlessly, like how sun evaporates the mist that covers it. Thus, the fury of Brahmastra was effortlessly countered by Bhagavan, and Bhagavan saves Parikshit. Not only saves him, gives him that divine vision, the glorious vision. And as the little child Parikshit was enjoying that beautiful vision, and the moment the force of Brahmastra was completely countered, it seems Bhagavan disappeared. And then after a while, at the right moment, at the auspicious moment when all the planetary positions were favorable, the birth of Parikshit happened. And the Pandavas were overjoyed. They were rejoicing. Finally, the successor to the Kuru dynasty is arrived. And all the Brahmanas, all the sages, the rishis were performing all the rituals, and they were praising not only the Pandavas, they were glorifying the divine child. And then the Brahmanas began to address Yudhishthira, and they said, Devena pratighatena shukle samsthanam upeyushi ratavo anugrahathaya vishnuna prabhavishnuna. Yudhishthira, you should know this. Devena pratighatena shukle samsthanam upeyushi. This divine child was protected by none other than Bhagavan Vishnu, Vishnuna Prabha Vishnuna. He escaped the force, the supernatural force of karma. He was almost about to die, and he was dragged right from the clutches of death. And it is only possible only because Bhagavan Narayana intervened. Bhagavan decided that he has to rewrite. He has to rewrite the script. So this is where we need to understand. Everything that happens, we ask this question, is everything that happens is according to God's plan? And we say there are a lot of wrongdoings that happen. The answer is very simple. Everything that happens may not be according to God's plan. He is the overseer. He is the sanctioner. Therefore, everything that happens may not be according to his plan, but everything is within his plan. We need to understand this subtle difference. It may not be his plan, but it is definitely within his plan, which means he also keeps modifying the plan as it goes along. He orchestrates it. And what is more important to understand, it is Bhagavan can make his plan work through everything that happens. When he takes a decision, he can make his plan work. And this is the magical, marvelous, wondrous birth of Parikshit. Is such a great example for this. Tasman namna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati. All the sages, they say, this divine child should be called Vishnurata, one who is protected by none other than the Paramatma, Bhagavan Vishnu. Tasman namna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati. Na sandeha mahabaho maha bhagavato mahan. There is no doubt. This little child is going to be a great Bhagavata. Why? Even before birth, he had that supreme vision of Bhagavan. And he was protected by none other than Bhagavan himself. And therefore, without any doubt, this Vishnurata, this boy who should be called Vishnurata, he will be a great Bhagavata. And all the rishis started to say, looking at his horoscope, they started, Yudhishthira wanted to know the future of Parikshit. And the sages, all the Brahmanas, they started to say, hey Maharaja, this Vishnuratha, this little child, when it comes to running the affairs of the kingdom, he will be like the great Ikshvaku. When it comes to running the affairs of the kingdom, he will be like the great Ikshvaku. When it comes to truthfulness, he will be like Bhagavan Sri Ramachandra himself. When it comes to charity, he will be like the great Shibi Chakravarti. When it comes to performing yajnas, he will be like the illustrious Bharata, son of Dushyanta. When it comes to archery, he will be like the great Arjuna. When it comes to impartiality, he will be like the Chaturmukha Brahma. When it comes to giving boons, he will be like Paramashiva. When it comes to protecting one and all, he will be like the Supreme Paramapurusha, the Paramatma, Mahavishnu himself. He will be full of virtues and he will follow the path showed by Krishna himself. Thus, Yudhishthira and all the Pandavas were so very pleased with this prophecy. All the Brahmanas also concluded. They also said, yes, he is named Vishnuratha, but he will be popularly called Parikshit and not Vishnuratha. Why? Sayesha loke vikhyataha Parikshiditi yat prabhuhu purvam drishtam anuthyanam pariksheta nareshviha. Pariksha is to examine. This little child, Vishnuratha, he was blessed with the glorious vision, the glorious form of Narayana even before his birth. And therefore, he will spend all the time examining everyone and everything around in this world, trying to discover that Bhagavan. And therefore, he will be called Parikshit, one who would spend his time in discovery of Narayana. And therefore, he will be called Parikshit. And thus, Sutta recounts all the details on the glorious birth of Parikshit. In the coming adhyayas, we will find answers to the other three questions. The three questions being, what are the various activities of Parikshit? How did he rule? Why did he settle down on the banks of Ganga, giving up everything? And how did the encounter between Sukha Brahman and Parikshit happen? Until then, let us continue to contemplate on that glorious form that was presented to Parikshit, the glorious form of Narayana, which protected Parikshit and because of which Parikshit got the name as Vishnuratha. May we all also earn thirst to be Vishnuratha and be Parikshits ourselves, continuing to discover Narayana in every facet, every experience of our lives. Sarvam Sri Krishna.